Defeated warriors died quickly. Their wives faced something worse than death, a hidden Viking ritual of terror. Stripped, chained, sold, identity erased, bodies commodified, spirits broken in systematic cruelty. From battlefields to slave markets, their suffering fueled an empire of darkness. What was this fate that made death seem merciful? Welcome to Grimoryx, where the North's frozen shadows hide rituals darker than the grave. From the 8th to the 11th centuries, Vikings, fierce Norse seafarers, raided Europe's coasts. Their longships, swift and deadly, carried warriors driven by wealth, land, and glory. Villages trembled at their approach, but beyond the clash of steel lay a darker purpose: acquiring human spoils. For the wives of the fallen, this marked the start of unimaginable horror, a system where mercy ended with the men's deaths. Viking warriors embodied a code of honor in battle, yet their raids were fueled by economic ambition. They viewed captives as commodities, especially women, whose value surpassed gold. This mindset turned conquest into commerce. Investigative accounts from chronicles reveal how they planned raids not just for plunder, but for human cargo. The wives of the defeated were prized, strong, fertile, skilled, destined for a shadow world of servitude. A typical Viking raid began with longships silently approaching under cover of dawn. Warriors stormed ashore, axes gleaming, overwhelming defenders in chaotic melee. Villages burned, screams echoed. Historical sources describe the efficiency: quick subjugation to minimize losses. For the wives hiding in homes, the raid's end signaled their capture. No escape. The Vikings' net closed tight, turning families into fragmented prizes of war. The battle raged with fury, shields shattered, swords clashed in crimson sprays. Defenders, brave warriors protecting their homes, fell one by one. Vikings, relentless, overpowered them. Chronicles note the Vikings' strategy: swift kills to avoid prolonged fights. As the last man dropped, silence descended, but for the women watching from the edges, this was no end. It was the prelude to their own inescapable torment. Defeated warriors received a grim mercy: death on the field, honourable in their culture. Vikings rarely took male prisoners, preferring to eliminate threats swiftly. Sources like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle describe executions or quick kills. This spared men prolonged suffering. Yet this kindness highlighted the contrast. For their wives, no such end awaited. Instead, a drawn-out agony began, far more insidious than a blade's edge. As the battlefield quieted, the fate of the women unfolded. Vikings rounded them up, separating mothers from children, wives from kin. This was the ritual's onset, a calculated process of dehumanization. Historical records show no pity. Women were inventory, not people. Their screams blended with the wind. What followed was not mere captivity, but a deliberate descent into a living hell, worse than any grave. The selection process was methodical, like appraising livestock. Vikings examined women for strength, beauty, skills, teeth checked, limbs prodded, all in view of kin to heighten terror. Noble wives faced extra scrutiny, their status noted for higher value. This ritual, described in traveller accounts, stripped dignity first. No mercy for the weak, they were discarded. The chosen entered the chain of suffering, their worth reduced to marks in a ledger. Psychological warfare infused the selection, deliberate and cruel. Examinations happened publicly, forcing families to watch, amplifying shame and helplessness. Viking officers noted details: age, origin, fertility. This broke spirits before chains did. Accounts from survivors, rare as they are, speak of the eyes, cold, appraising gazes that turned humans into objects. For wives, seeing their world's end in those moments, the ritual's true horror revealed itself quietly, inescapably. Stripping of identity followed selection. Names erased, replaced with codes or Norse terms. Fetid women were forbidden their language, faith questioned. This ritualistic dehumanization, evidenced in sagas and chronicles, aimed to sever ties to the past. For wives, once respected in their communities, this was a death of self. Clothed in rags, marked like property, they stepped into oblivion, their former lives fading like smoke from the raided village. Chained in columns, the women marched to harbours. Days of grueling treks through hostile terrain. Restraints bit into skin. Falls meant death or abandonment. Vikings drove them like cattle, with minimal water to keep them alive but weakened. Historical evidence from trade routes shows this efficiency. For the wives, each step erased home further, their whispers of prayer silenced by whips. The ritual's chain, binding body and soul. Conditions on the march were brutal. Blistering sun or freezing rain. Minimal food to prevent rebellion. Diseases spread in the close ranks. The weak perished without ceremony. Vikings calculated losses as acceptable for profit. Survivor tales, though scarce, paint exhaustion's toll. For the wives, this endless walk was psychological erosion, home's memory fading with each mile. The ritual forging chains, not just of iron, but of despair. At the harbours, women were loaded onto longships like cargo, chained below decks in cramped holds. Ventilation was scarce, the air thick with fear and sickness. Vikings secured them to prevent escapes or suicides. Trade logs revealed this as standard practice. For the wives, the rocking waves marked a point of no return, their former lives sinking with the shore, the ritual's grip tightening in the dark confines. The sea voyage was a nightmare of weeks in darkness, storms tossing the ship, waves crashing, injuries common but ignored. Food was sparse, diseases rampant in the fetid air. Vikings rationed based on value, favouring the fertile. Archaeological finds of ship holds confirm the cramped horror. For the wives, the endless rocking echoed their inner turmoil, the ritual drowning their hopes in salt and shadow. Arrival at slave markets like Dublin or Constantinople brought new terrors. Women were unloaded, cleaned superficially to fetch higher prices. Bustling ports teemed with buyers from afar. Historical records of Viking trade hubs describe the scale, thousands sold annually. For the wives, stepping onto the platform meant final commodification. Their bodies paraded, the ritual culminating in the auction's gavel, sealing their fate in foreign lands. Preparation for auction involved grooming, hair combed, bodies oiled to highlight assets. Pregnant women were marketed as 2 for 1. Vikings maximised value through this dehumanising display. Market records show premiums for beauty or skills. For the wives, standing naked on platforms, eyes downcast, this was peak humiliation. The ritual's logic was clear. Turn suffering into silver. Their dignity the first casualty in the trade's cold calculus. The auction process was a spectacle. Women paraded, skills demonstrated, weaving, cooking, even literacy tested. Bidders prodded freely, haggling over prices. High values for youth and beauty, discounts for flaws. Viking laws protected this trade. For the wives, the gavel's fall was a second death, sold to strangers. This ritual, documented in economic records, turned personal tragedy into transaction. Their futures bartered in the market's roar. Testing at auctions was invasive, strength gauge by lifting weights, fertility by crude examinations, skills by on-spot tasks. Beautiful ones commanded premiums, literate rarities even more. Viking traders exploited every attribute. Historical ledgers list prices equivalent to livestock. For the wives, this objectification was soul-crushing, their worth reduced to bids. The ritual ensured maximum profit, their humanity auctioned off in the clamour of greedy voices. Once sold, women were handed to new masters, Viking lords or foreign traders. Renamed again, they entered halls as thralls. Laws treated them as property, allowing abuse without recourse. Records show sales as economic boosts. For the wives, this transition was final erasure, their past lives sold away. The ritual complete, they faced endless servitude, their suffering profitable, the darkness of their new world unyielding. Life as a thrall in Viking halls meant endless toil. Cooking, weaving, farming from dawn to dusk. Punishments for resistance were severe: beatings, starvation, isolation. Sagas describe thralls as shadows in the household. For the wives, once free, this degradation was profound. Their bodies used at will, children born into slavery. The ritual's legacy was a life of quiet erasure, honor replaced by survival's grim whisper. Forced labor defined thrall existence. Menial tasks in fields or homes, no rest, no rights. Viking society viewed them as tools, replaceable. Archaeological sites reveal worn bones from overwork. For the wives, this was a fall from grace, their skills twisted for others' benefit. Resistance brought harsher duties or sales. The ritual ensured perpetual subjugation, their labor fueling the very culture that destroyed them, a cycle of silent agony. Sexual slavery was central to thrall life, women as concubines, breeding stock. Masters tracked fertility like livestock, children enslaved from birth. Laws allowed this, viewing it as right of ownership. Sagas hint at the violence. For the wives, this violation was ultimate betrayal of their past bonds. The ritual bred generations of suffering, their bodies instruments of perpetuation, dignity lost in the intimacy of horror. Psychological manipulation was key, alternating cruelty with kindness to create dependency. Isolation from kin, language bans deepened the break. Vikings used this to prevent revolts. Survivor narratives describe the mental toll, broken wills, lost identities. For the wives, this mind game was the ritual's cruelest part, turning them into willing shadows. Their spirits, once fierce, dimmed in the cycle of hope and despair. Noble women, wives of important warriors, endured special degradations, public parading naked, forced menial tasks to break status. Coerced letters to kin urged surrender, amplifying terror. Vikings used them as propaganda. Historical annals note their higher prices but harsher treatments. This targeted ritual crushed elite spirits, their fall a warning. Once queens in their homes, they became symbols of conquest's cruel depth. The long-term impact was profound. Lifetimes of trauma, identities lost forever. Why worse than death? Because death ends pain. This ritual prolonged it, commodifying souls. Historical reflections show societies scarred by such losses. For the wives, survival meant endless mourning. The Viking system, efficient and merciless, left echoes in history, a testament to human cruelty, where mercy was reserved for the dead, torment for the living. In the end, these women's stories fade like embers in the north wind, yet their suffering whispers through time. Was it ritual or raw conquest? History holds the bones, but the souls remain unrested. Shadows of the Vikings linger, reminding us that some fates eclipse death itself. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let your curiosity unearth more shadows from the past. Until the next forgotten horror awakens, I'll be here in the dim light.